It's very good to be here, and I feel particularly honored to have been asked to come and talk to you on this particular occasion. I just want to indicate that this is an environment that I'm very familiar with. In 2010, I was Minister of Defense, and I had very good relations with Agri South Africa because we had a common problem. The common problem was the security of our borders, and the agricultural community was equally vulnerable because of the intrusion and the vulnerability along the borders. And we had long discussions about whether we return the commandos or whether we do whatever. But after that, we had a very good relationship, and we continued in our exchange of views about what to do. I'm glad to be here now and find that we're dealing with a different kind of security. It's no longer the physical security on our borders. It is about food security and going forward. May I assume, therefore, that our efforts as SANDF have ended much of the problems, Program Director, on our border? No? So I must go back to defense. Okay, now that's a promise. We'll go back to defense and see. I was convinced that we had sorted that out, because in our engagement we decided we were going to put up the fence, which earlier on had been declared as unconstitutional and inhumane and etc. So we turned down the volume of the electricity, etc. But we continued to have problems. But I didn't realize that there's still some vulnerability around the sector over there. The vulnerability that I know is that our cars stolen from South Africa drive right through the fence and are sold in various parts. But I thought you were immune from that. I'm sorry that I wasn't of much help, but I'll tell the President that perhaps I might be better off in defense, so we can solve that problem once and for all. But what I'm trying to put across to you is I've been in this space. We've had engagement for over a long period of time, and we had come to a conclusion with yourselves that we needed a very strong relationship. I needed you as part of my protection buffer when I was Minister of Defense. You needed the Defense Force as a much stronger buffer against any intrusion and against the vulnerability of the community. We had a continuous relationship, and we started at that point an outreach in 2010. And that outreach was exchange of information to identify challenges, share experiences, and here I am again, this time wanting to share experiences with you in an environment that I am fairly new in, but in which you are very experienced in. And I'd like to think of this as a continuation of that outreach program that we started so long ago, where we can share experiences, share knowledge, where you would know what government thinks about certain things, where government is going, and I would know what your views are. Ultimately, everyone will need to be consulted to make sure that water is protected as a Bill of Rights in the Constitution that regulates water distribution and shares water. We are responsible for making sure that everybody has equitable access to water. We acknowledge and appreciate very much the continued working relationship that we now have with Agri SA. We had a colloquium in August last year, which went very well, I believe, and this is but a continuation. I'm hoping that we will have continuous engagement. It's a particularly difficult time for all of us as we try to navigate between what the panel of advisors on land redistribution is saying, what the Bill of Rights is saying, and as we progress in the gradual realization of everybody's rights, it's important that we keep in touch so that we are at one in the direction that we're going. You have the necessary experience, as I've indicated, therefore we depend very much on you. We acknowledge the very important place that you play in the agricultural sector and in our economies particularly. and we are ensuring continuously that we can provide support to you in the agricultural sector from whichever angle that is necessary. I believe you had an engagement with the Minister of Agriculture yesterday. Did she leave sufficient hope and fertilizer? She did? Oh, that's good. Makes my job so much easier. We will continue, therefore, with these discussions. I have brought with me my advisors, and therefore it will be easy for us to continuously engage with each other. When I was preparing for this engagement and putting down some notes on what to say in the speech today, one of my advisors, the clever one, or no, they're all clever, but the witty one, says to me, "Ma'am, you should think of your relationship with Agri SA as a marriage with an antenuptial contract." I liked that description, especially because I wanted to think of myself as the man in the marriage, and I'm not sure about the antenuptial contract, but if it works for both of us, it's fine. But I'd like to be the dominant partner for once in my life, and that most of the men here can experience what it's like to be the wife. Why are you frowning? Why are you frowning? You have no idea what fun you would be if we exchanged roles, and you just played the other role. We acknowledge very much the work that you have put into this. We recognize the strides that you have achieved and the respect that South Africa has earned as a rich agricultural country. When I was Minister of International Relations, I was amazed at the number of countries I visited in which it was our farmers who were providing agricultural support in those countries. And so we would get to a place and they'd say, "Oh, so you are the one who owns those good farmers?" And I say, "Yes, I'm the one who owns those good farmers." So our reputation goes far and wide, and I am very proud of that particular role that you play. I recognize also the effort that you put in to make sure that there's equitable access to water for all the farmers, and that you have established a water desk. Congratulations on that. I recognize, for me particularly in the water sphere, I recognize and am grateful that you've established a drought disaster fund. Perhaps we could also share ideas about how we deal with the matter of drought. I'm continuously faced with this, especially in Limpopo and in the Eastern Cape. I perhaps can count on you to advise me on how to deal with some of these problems that you've been dealing with for ages. I'm very proud of the fact that you've taken a resolution in your last Congress to establish a catchment management authorities and local management agencies. We have a very interested, committed, and engaging partner in myself, and together we can certainly be able to turn the future of the economy around. You no doubt know the challenges of the environment, and I can fill you in on the challenges of government in the sector of water. And I want to just briefly expand on the challenges that we have in government in the sector of water. Within these past 5 months, I've been in a very difficult environment. As you would all know, water is a very difficult matter to manage. I've managed, however, to familiarize myself with the work that you do, and I must confess that with sincerest appreciation for the incredible work that you do, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that I'm here, and I'm hoping that this relationship will be forged and could continue. And I do know that we live in a very difficult time of job scarcity. We live in a very difficult time where there's climate change, and all of us are affected by the same problem. I would like to engage with yourself so we have a common understanding of the problems going forward. I intend to bring us closer so that we can work closer. Our food security is highly dependent on you and this particular relationship. The United Nations has declared that water is a precondition for human existence and the sustainability of the planet. The physical world of water is closely bound up with the socio-political world, with water often a key factor in managing risks such as famine, epidemics, inequalities, and political instability. It is further stated that water is also at the heart of adaptation to climate change, serving as a critical link between climate system, human society, and the environment. Without proper water governance, it's very likely that we're not going to be able to deal with the situation that we find ourselves in climate change. Access to water and sanitation are recognized by the United Nations as a human right, and in September 2013, the member states of the United Nations agreed to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to address economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. And here we adopted SDG 6, which deals with availability and sustainability and management of clean water, sanitation for all. During my budget vote earlier this year, I outlined the challenges faced by us in the water sector, and in particular the slow pace of transformation. As with all other socioeconomic rights, access to water in South Africa has historically been linked to race. The lack of access to water amongst those who are landless persists, and any policies of reform on land policy must necessarily include all of us. And that is why I was very glad to take this opportunity to be here. All of us as farmers, all of us as needing water, all of us for our very existence. We have regularly outlined the challenges we have in government and the hope that we will be able to work forward towards a common resolution of these. And briefly, here are some of the problems that I'd like to share with you. I know that you might have your own issues that you want to share with me. We agreed with the chair that my job would be to deliver the speech. We will engage with each other should we have the opportunity. I'll answer the easy questions, and I've brought with me a panel of my advisor who will answer all the difficult questions. I see I have 3 of them here now. So the difficult questions will go to them, and the easy ones will come to me. But the solutions come to me, so I can claim all the successes out of this. You are aware of the National Development Plan, and you do know that we have in South Africa an indication that 1.5 million hectares, 10% of the cultivated land, is under irrigation, and that further 500 hectares need to be developed. This requires more water for irrigation, and already water in a water-stressed country. I believe we are one of the top 3% or 30% in the world of water-stressed countries. Therefore, we need to have a way in which we conserve our water and make sure that we can stretch it further. We are in the process right now in my department to work out a water management plan, and we will be able to put it out in a few days' time. I was glad we would be here today so that we can get your opinion and make sure that your views are part and parcel of the master plan that we will be unveiling in a few days' time. We are planning, as Minister Didiza would have indicated to you, we are planning our future development and planning with it the infrastructure. And based on the current projections and without effective interventions, the water deficit confronting the country could be between 2.7 to 3.8 billion cubic meters, a gap of approximately 17% of available water resources. So we've got to find a way of how we save water, how we create water, and how we use our water. I will depend on you to assist me with that, having been in this environment all this time. To redress the slow transformation of the water sector, the department developed a new water policy in 2013 in order to fast-track the transformation imperatives. One of the policy statements was that the policy reaffirms the 1997 White Paper policy position on the establishment of catchment area agencies, which ties in with your requirement to have an agency to manage these areas. To manage water resources in South Africa, it also states that these catchment agencies, in consultation with the minister, will determine the water institutional structures required to manage water within their jurisdiction. And that is why I'm here, so that I am better advised as I execute my job of making sure that we are managing water in this country judiciously. In order to fully implement the above policy position, a legislative amendment is required. Hence, in the interim, until the amendment is done to all 2005 irrigation boards must be transformed to water user associations in order to be governed under the current National Water Act 1998, which allows for strong oversight and directive from the minister to whatever user association there is. The department is currently developing a transformation charter, and we will want to work with you as you deal with transformation yourself. The purpose of this charter is to define the transformation requirements of the water sector and how the institution should contribute to progressive realization of this particular national interest. It is envisaged that in an integrated tool for addressing this transformation will be in print very soon. The Department of Water Affairs is of the firm view that part of the discussion points of the colloquium is a transformation in the water and access to water use for productive purposes. While the department is making some gains in allocating water to previously disadvantaged people, the progress remains minimal. The main limiting factor is the lack of ownership of land by our people, and therefore lack of collateral access and financial capital for the development of these areas. I hope to discuss with you how we can hold hands and assist those that we are wanting to empower. To this end, the department encourages the creation of partnership vehicles such as joint ventures to expedite the uptake of water and therefore advance transformation in water. Our focus as a department is to sharpen our regulatory instruments and to make sure that equity becomes the central focus of our mandate. Another focus of our mandate, which I believe is a concern to yourselves, is how we keep our rivers and water clean. I do know how concerned you are about the pollution of water. I am equally as concerned about that. I'll indicate to you in our discussion what we have done to ensure that we can keep our waters clean. However, I will be assisted by you in some of the issues that you are dealing with. Where we have found that municipalities have been negligent in their work and have thus diminished the quality of water, we've taken legal action. We've taken legal action against a number of municipalities. However, legal action is not enough. We have municipalities that are in dire need of support to understand the water environment and how to contain it and how to make sure that all of us benefit from that. I hope to walk out of here with some kind of understanding about what it is that all of us are going to do to support our municipalities in doing their work. In response to our concern on water, there is an anti-pollution team that I'm informed about that will deal with pollution spots in the country. We're particularly concerned about the fact that it is the industries that benefit greatly from use of water that contribute also to much of the pollution of the water, apart of course from the fact that we ourselves in the municipalities are not doing much to make sure that our waters are clean. We will walk away from this, as I've indicated, with some clear suggestions from you on how we do that. A few years back, some clever minister decided that in order that we should assist the municipalities in dealing with the problem of leaking water, that she would gather together some thousands of students, go and teach them how to deal with leaks and bring them back into the environment. I don't think she has lived to forget that particular glitch in her life. Because I was just about to say, I wouldn't mind you partnering with our municipalities, but I don't want to find myself in the situation she found herself. But on a more serious note, I wouldn't mind you partnering with our municipalities to assist everybody, make sure that we have the standard of water that all of us deserve. Compliance and monitoring is very important for all of us. And non-compliance in cases that the department is dealing with, as I've indicated, we take to the courts, and we're hoping that we can have some kind of assistance from Agri SA and those entities that are associated with Agri SA to keep a watch on this, because this water that is polluted is of important, absolute importance to all of us. We have a social and regulatory framework against which we work. In the National Water Act, the department is considering improving the resource of poor farmer subsidies, because we want to make sure that we are supporting everybody and make sure that allocation of water is as equitable as it is possible. We've made a mistake in the past as government, where we took some tracts of land, especially in the Eastern Cape that I know of, and handed them over to black farmers in an attempt to ensure that there is equitable access to land for farming. But we forgot one important thing. 2-3 years down the line, when we went to visit the farmers, we discovered the farms were not doing well. And the reasons the farms were not doing well is because they did not have access to water, which was a great pity, because that particular project did not go very far. I am hoping now that we have the outcome of the Land Commission, we will work together to make sure that everybody succeeds, because when everybody succeeds, South Africa succeeds. I'd like to share the following facts and figures about South Africa's water situation with you, some of which you may well know. However, it is important that I emphasize this. South Africa, as of indicators, is the 30th driest country in the world, with a semi-arid climate and an average annual rainfall of about 465 millimeters, which is half of the world's average. We can see some aspects of this. We saw this and some aspects of this in the Western Cape. We can see aspects of this now in Limpopo and in the Eastern Cape. And I'd like to find out from you if there are any innovative methods that we could use to offset this. South Africa's per capita consumption is 253 liters per person a day, far in excess of the global average of 177 liters a person per day. I'd like to walk out of here with you, having discussed with you how we reduce this and make sure that we are on equal level with the rest of the world. 3 million households do not have access to reliable drinking water, and this is a problem for our development. 14.1 million people do not have access to safe sanitation, and this is very problematic for us as it pollutes our rivers. Only 64% of households have access to reliable water supply services. This is a problem. 56% of wastewater treatment works and 44% of water treatment works are in poor or critical condition. And this is a concern to all of us because it makes our work completely dysfunctional. I will leave some of the matters that I have here for your consideration. Our municipalities are not coping with what they're supposed to be doing, and they create a great problem for all of us. We want to transform this sector in such a way that everybody benefits from it. And we want to transform it in such a way that we empower those people who are responsible for this, especially the municipalities. It is an undeniable fact that land and water are connected concepts both biologically and spiritually. There has been a historical omission which persists, which separates the linkages between land and water, both in law and in policy. We seek to ensure that this glitch is overcome and we correct this. This is what we're doing right now with consultation from you. Chairperson, I could go on. This is an area that I'm finding fascinating because it is an area that whose enormity I'd completely underestimated. Mine was to turn on the tap and I got the water. Now my job is to make sure that there is water in the tap. I want to say I am extremely glad that I'm here to learn from you as I move forward in my work and to share with you what it is that government is planning to do that will make sure that you are protected as our food basket and to make sure that we are able to share the resources of water. Chairperson, thank you very much for the time that you've given me.